Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for allowing me to take up an issue which is of paramount importance, and that is the rising danger of social media being abused to hack our democracy. Global companies like Facebook and Twitter are used increasingly to shape political narratives by leaders, political parties, and their proxies. It has repeatedly come to public notice that global social media companies are not providing a level playing field to all political parties. Last year, for instance, the Wall Street Journal reported how Facebook's own hate speech rules are being bent to favor politicians of the ruling party. Recently, Al Jazeera and the Reporters Collective have demonstrated how a toxic ecosystem of proxy advertiser posing as news media is flourishing on Facebook, bypassing election laws of our nation, breaking Facebook's own rules, and completely suppressing the voice of those who are speaking up against the government. Sir, the blatant manner in which social harmony is being disturbed by Facebook with the connivance of the ruling establishment is dangerous for our democracy. Young and old minds alike are being filled with hate through emotionally charged disinformation and proxy advertising. Companies like Facebook are aware of this and are profiting from it. These reports show a growing nexus between big corporations, the ruling establishment, and global social media giants like Facebook. Sir, through you, I urge the government to put an end. Sir, through you, I urge the government to put an end to the systematic influence and interference of Facebook and other social media giants in the electoral politics of the world's largest democracy. This is beyond partisan politics. We need to protect our democracy and social harmony regardless of who is in power. Thank you.
When Henry Piquet, the French aviator, carried 6,500 pieces of mail across the Yamuna from Allahabad to Naini on a Humber Sommer biplane. The first commercial airline, a Tata Air Services flight, was piloted by J.R.D. Tata, a postmoth, in October 1932 from Karachi to Bombay at a dazzling 100 miles an hour. Fast forward to 1953, when the Air Corporations Act nationalized the industry, and 8 domestic airlines were merged into 2, Indian Airlines and Air India International. In 2011, these were again combined into 1, Air India, a single entity. But now, with the privatization of Air India last month, which was the last government airline in the 70th year of its nationalization, there is no point in discussing its privatization anymore. Who was for it, who was against it? It is already a fait accompli, and we need to move on. We can only hope that this government has put in enough rules and reasonable processes for aircrafts to be made available for the private sector for emergencies as and when required by the government of India, as we've seen in the case of Ukraine and many others in the last few years. As I analyze the numbers, I find that from 2014 till today, Air India formed between 60 and 95% of the Ministry of Civil Aviation's budget. The sale of Air India, basically an airline that cost the exchequer about 120,000 crores over the past 10 years due to gross mismanagement, is being now lauded as a landmark success. But Air India seemed to be the only thing that this ministry was doing, or rather doing quite badly. It is incumbent upon me as a responsible public citizen and a public representative to point out to taxpayers of this country what is the truth behind these ministries' numbers. We need to really analyze them. This year, of course, completely skews the numbers, and it's difficult for a layperson to figure out what's going on. First, let's look at the Air India related expenses. Last year's revised estimate had 62,000 crores as debt repayment, and the budget estimate for 22-23 includes almost 9,300 crores towards the SPV Air India asset holding for debt servicing. Excuse me, sir. Once we exclude Air India, then the total allocation for the ministry is down 31% over last year's revised estimates. The total budget estimate for 22-23 for non-Air India expenditure is a grand total of only 1,242 crores. This is a reduction of 31% over the 1,770 crores revised for 21-22. Let us look at the breakup. First, establishment expenditure, 435 crores, increase of 12% over revised estimate. The regional connectivity scheme, this is the much touted Uran airports, Iran routes. Only 601 crores, a decrease of over 40% over revised estimate of 994 crores. 3. Airports Authority of India, 150 crores, decrease of 21% over revised estimate. Others, 57 crores, reduction of 78%. I would like to ask one question. With a paltry budget expenditure of 1,240 crores, why do we need a separate ministry for civil aviation? 1,200 crores is what Mr. Gadkari is spending to four-lane a stretch of 67 kilometers in my district. The Manrega budget for my state is almost 3 times this amount. People should be aware that there is no country in the world apart from India and Bangladesh which has a separate and independent ministry for civil aviation. No one else. Everyone has evolved as they have sold and privatized their national carriers. I'm going to name a few examples of transport. Canada, Transport Canada. UK Department for Transport. Germany, Federal Ministry for Digital and Transport. Singapore, which still owns 55% in Singapore Airlines through Temasek, Ministry of Transport. Japan, Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport. The question I raise here, or rather the proposal I put forward, is that now that this ministry is no longer in the business of running a national airline, why does it even need to be a separate ministry? What is it actually doing? Why not merge the Ministry of Civil Aviation with the Road Transport or the Shipping Ministry and create a holistic ministry for transport? The Airports Authority of India, a mini Ratna, it's a CPSE, is now the mainstay of the entire Civil Aviation Ministry, and barring the regional connectivity RCS subsidy of about 600 crores, which incidentally is a huge underperformer, there are no big sums to be managed here at all. Even the important air navigation services is solely mandated to AAI. BCAS, the regulator, does nothing except issue aviation security circulars and conduct routine audit checks. It has a revenue budget of only 67 crores for salaries and a capital budget of only 30 crores for making a new building and for some biometric project that they're doing. All actual airport and installation security is handled by CISF, which reports to Home Ministry, doesn't report to Ministry of Civil Aviation. Let us examine the Airports Authority of India. What exactly are they doing? In the year 1920, which was the last available public report that I could find, AI earned a profit about 2,000 crores, which was revenue share from 8 PPP airports and fees from domestic and overflight services. It gave 1,000 crores as dividend to the Consolidated Fund of India, but the government did not even find it worthwhile to allocate at least this amount to the regional connectivity, the Udan scheme. Can you imagine the regional connectivity Udan scheme that my esteemed colleague who's speaking before me from the BJP mentioned has been reduced by 40%. The RCS scheme was introduced in 2016 by the ministry to stimulate regional air connectivity and make air travel more affordable. In 2016, this government sanctioned 948 new air routes to serve underserved areas to boost connectivity. But as of January 31st, 2002, only 404 routes have been operationalized. That's only 43%. Your 5-year budget for RCS from 16-17 to 21-22 was 4,500 crores. As of December 2021, only 2,100 crores, just 46% has been spent. So 50% of your 1,200 crore budget is RCS, and RCS itself is a non-starter. You yourself must be realizing this, otherwise why would you cut the budget down 40%? The Standing Committee report says there are huge delays in operationalizing because airlines are not willing to operate on RCS routes. So it is established beyond doubt that the ministry and indeed this government is not in the business of either running an airline or controlling commercial aviation in India. In which case, let the government do away with this ministry, merge it into a larger consolidated transport ministry, and instead concentrate on making life easier for those private players who are the only ones operating in the Indian airspace today. There's no government player, it's only private. Let's make life easier for private players. This government has seen, actually both the UPA and the NDA, how hard it is to run an airline successfully in this country. We have written off over 100,000 crores of public exchequer's money in Air India. Even then, this government refuses, absolutely refuses to take any steps when it comes to fixing the taxes on aviation turbine fuel ATF that are crippling this industry with every upcycle of crude price. Either reducing the VAT and excise duties on a pan-India level or starting the path to putting ATF into GST where they can get input tax credit. Otherwise, with the crude price of oil the way it's going, there's a huge risk of the entire sector getting back into the doldrums as we had seen in 2012-14. Now you have no longer Air India to cross-subsidize, so reduce ATF taxes. If cumbersome small regional aircrafts and airline regulations can be streamlined without impacting safety, there is no reason why our country can't see small airports regionally, both cargo and passengers. We see this model all over the world. I want to now put forward the following proposals to help streamline the industry and allow private players to operate easily and profitably. Number one, reduce central excise duty on ATF from 11% to 0% with immediate effect for both passenger and cargo. Number two, please put in a uniform IGST of 5% for all parts of aircraft and aircraft engines, irrespective of the chapter of the Customs Tariff Act 1975 in which the item is covered. Different parts are covered in different chapters, attract different rates of tax. There is no single definition or clear interpretation of what is an aircraft part and what is a whole. Is an aircraft engine part or a whole? There is no clarity. Number three, discontinue GST on engines repaired abroad, allow ITC. India currently has negligible MRO capacity. MRO is maintenance, repair and operations. We don't have domestic capability. So airlines have to take their engines abroad for repairs, whether in warranty or under warranty. Once you take an engine abroad for repairs under warranty, you repair it, you re-import it, you have to pay GST on it. So remove the GST on repair on engines under warranty. When there's no warranty and the repair engine is re-imported, slap uniform 5% GST on it. We need to do this till domestic MRO capacity is built up, please. Number four, currently airlines pay GST under the reverse charge mechanism RCM. But during COVID, we saw that ticket cancellations were often higher than ticket bookings, and GST credit accumulated. Airlines have fixed monthly expenditure, and there's a monthly addition to input tax credit. What the industry needed was liquidity. And here we had a situation where there was a huge amount of credit accumulation combined with sticky cash flows. So please defer RCM tax payments for 6 months till we get back to normal. Financing. We saw during COVID, several airlines in India had approached their bankers for support, but bankers could not extend any funding to the industry except under the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, which was very restrictive. Let us have a mechanism where funds should be provided to airlines based on their financial strength, based on their ability to repay. And the government, with all due respect, should stop focusing on building so many new airports in a race for bragging rights and instead focus on increasing capacity and facilities at existing airports. Most major airports are operating at 85 to 120% of handling capacity. This is a safety issue. Terminals at Bagdogra, Jodhpur are ancient, tiny. Airports like Srinagar, Leh have no proper aircraft de-icing facilities, very primitive landing and navigation. Let us fix the basics. The only new airport, major airport, commissioned and built after 14 is the upcoming Goa and Mopa airport. The rest are all new terminals, were all built under the previous regime, which rightly focused on increasing capacity at major hubs. The most important thing is air safety. We have a 19% shortage of air traffic control personnel capacity. The sanction strength is 3901. We currently have 3162. Airports Authority says, with Udan and many Tier 2 and Tier 3 unused airports getting revived, we need another 300 to 500 ATCOs immediately. In Delhi, the mandatory break after 30 minutes is now 2 hours. In Guwahati, they work 365 days without a break. The AAI sought exemption from the DGCA for the third time in the last 1 year from implementing the mandatory shift timings that were to come into effect from November 2020. The UN Aviation Safety Watchdog put these checks in place in 18, and our last exemption, India's last exemption, expired on January 31st, 2022. January 12th. The Honourable Minister, your predecessor, said in Parliament when he was explaining the need for privatisation that the government cannot be in the business of running airlines. Well, now that you're out of it, it is only fair that you create a level playing field for those private operators who are running airlines. Merge the ministry, do away with a separate demand for grants, reduce duties on ATF, or better still, bring it under GST. And finally, as I end, I would like to quote former Prime Minister Vajpayee in 1972, who said in Parliament, "These days, the atmosphere in New Delhi makes one choke. It is not easy to breathe freely. The chanting of a Prime Minister's name on All India Radio from morning to night, saturated propaganda on cinema screens. How can people sitting in opposition fight this?" It is India's greatest tragedy, perhaps, that the very party Vajpayee ji led as Prime Minister today leads a government that has turned this very same Parliament into the Colosseum in Rome in the 1st century, where like a gladiator, the Honourable Prime Minister enters to chants of Modi, Modi. And sadly, those entrusted with the decorum of this House, the garima, as they like to put it, smile smugly through it all. So today, as a woman parliamentarian, let me chant some names that truly deserve applause, both in this House and in the annals of civil aviation history of India. The first Indian woman to get a pilot's license, Urmila Parekh. The first woman commercial pilot, Prem Mathur. The first woman pilot of Indian Airlines, Durba Banerjee. The first woman IAF officer to fly in a combat zone, Gunjan Saxena. The captain of the first Boeing having an all-women flight crew, Saudamani Deshmukh. The youngest pilot in civil aviation history to command a jet aircraft, Nivedita Bhasin. And on this celebratory note, my esteemed colleagues, let us do what needs to be done. Keep the Maharaja out of the skies by all means, but let's keep the Aam Aadmi flying high. Jai Hind. Thank you very much.
Stand here to participate on behalf of the NCP on this debate on the budget for Jammu Kashmir. I would just humbly ask the Honourable Finance Minister as a request, this is not about right or wrong, but deeply all of us are very proud Indians and very committed to every state which is going through a difficult and a challenging time, and Jammu Kashmir being one of them. And when we are debating such an important discussion of a budget of such an important state, if you gave us 24 hours in the future, I hope we don't have to discuss it again. You will take elections soon there, so it will be discussed in their own assembly. But if such circumstances do occur, we would appreciate if you gave us a little more time so that we could have more extensive debate, is a humble request. I would want to speak only on the budget, but I'm too tempted to reply to Shri Jitendra Singh, the Honourable Minister. I do understand he comes from the state, he's lived there, he's born and brought up there. But like most Indians, for us, Kashmir is a dream holiday. I went to Jammu several times because my mother is very God-loving and she's taken me to Vaishnav Devi several times with her. And as a family, we didn't go abroad in those days. We traveled in India, and Kashmir being the best holiday. अगर इस देश में स्वर्ग या जन्नत कही है तो वो कश्मीर में है. So मैं जब से छोटी थी कश्मीर में बहुत बार जा चुकी हूँ. So it was very interesting because I also happened to go with my family. I was not privileged enough to go on any committee to Kashmir, but I did go with my husband and my daughter to Srinagar. And there are few observations I would like to bring to his notice. I met the person who runs the Delhi Public School there. It's Mr. Dhar's family which runs, who happened to be Kashmiri Pandit, and I was not going to make this an issue of Pandits or locals, but since he specifically spoke so much about them, I would like to bring something to his notice. He talked so much that this government wants to do so much for Kashmiri Pandits and so much injustice is done to them. I want to ask him pointed questions to the Honourable Minister Jitendra Singh, that this Delhi public school schools 5,000 children there. Even through the extended challenging times, one family who did not leave, fought, survived and ran a school was no government agency. It was this Dhar family which ran Delhi Public School. They had attacks, they run their own buses, and today what is this government doing to them? Sending notices after notices. They are questioning them on who their teachers are, sending them notices on some fee structure, whether it's run efficiently. So is this how you're helping Kashmiri Pandits who really stuck it out with you? Is this the justice that Mr. Jitendra Singh was talking about, Kashmiri Pandits, that he is feeling the pain for? He doesn't feel pain for these 5,000 children who are studying there today and the teachers who are studying there.
They also run specially abled children's school inside that campus.
I'm so glad, Mehtabji. Thank you very much.
Yes.
This is one school which has they accommodate children with special needs. And this is how this government wants to treat them. Is this their love for Kashmiri Pandits? Is it only limited to what happened 70 years ago? These things happened before even I was born. How many years are you going to be a prisoner of the past and blame somebody else? Agar mere father ne mujhe aur padhayega to main Harvard gheti. Because obviously they don't read Vedant. Could, would, should are all given. Thoda sa Vedant padhiye aap. Stop being a prisoner. Live in the moment and go ahead. What are we going to do as Indians for our Kashmiri Pandits and people of Kashmir today and for their future is what we are debating in this budget. And I think that's what this budget document is about. He talked about so much about corruption. I'm glad he did. Who doesn't want a corruption-free environment? Satpal Malik, not by us. It was your governor. He was the one who made an allegation. 200 crore रुपया का allegation कुछ फाइल का चक्कर था. मैं नहीं कह रही हूँ सर. ये सतपाल मलिक जी कह रहे थे. सबने पढ़ा है, देश ने पढ़ा है. So what about that corruption after all the wonderful changes you've made? It's so easy to sit on one side, sir, and criticize somebody. Really, why don't you go and see what the ground reality of Jammu Kashmir is today? How many hotels have you built? Today, the Honorable Tourism Minister, all hotels are full. How many new hotels have you built? How many roads have you built? I've been to Srinagar all my life. I've been to Pahalgam. Nothing has changed. It's the same beautiful, simple people of Jammu Kashmir who I met for years and years and years. So what big interventions has your government make? I want to ask him. And funnily enough, I want to bring something to his notice. Manoj Nanavre, Chief of Staff, Mr. Paul, Divisional Commissioner Srinagar, Mahesh Dikshit, IB Chief, Major General Sanjay Vishwarao, Anand Jain, Burhampur IPS NCF Chief, Sanjay Nahar, who works with all the children from Kashmir, are all Jai Maharashtra. All people from Maharashtra who are today based in Srinagar. We don't think about you versus us. We all are Indians. So when you make such serious allegations to other people in this history, it's so unfortunate. Who said that? No, I'm not yielding now. You missed my first speech, which I was asking you for.
I am as much Maharashtrian as you are, Adogra.
Well, I'm glad you are, but then I don't bring up the history and say, oh, Atalji ne acha kiya ya galat kiya. You have forgotten Atalji, I haven't. Because he was a great leader who had, I'm not
Honorable
yielding.
Speaker, I heard her saying some time back कि हम नहीं कहते हमारे माता पिता ने क्या किया. नहीं कहते तो ना शुक्र है आपके माता पिता ने आपको इस काबिल बनाया कि आज आप लोकसभा में हैं. ऐसा नहीं कहिए. We can't forget what we have got or not got from माता पिता.
Yes.
आप भी तो यहाँ माता पिता की वजह से पहुंची हैं.
Please continue.
मैंने तो डायनेस्टी को कभी नहीं कहा. मैंने तो अच्छा ही बोला है हमारी डायनेस्टी. कोई दिक्कत नहीं. डॉक्टर का बेटा डॉक्टर हो तो आपको चल जाता है. हमारे में क्या दिक्कत है आपको? अभी छोड़ दीजिए. फादर मदर को छोड़ के कुछ भी बोल सकते हैं. माँ बाप मत निकालिए.
It's not easy to get over the legacy. That is what I'm saying. Legacy of a nation, legacy of a country, legacy of a society. That's not nothing personal. But you only referred, so I think that's besides the point.
For a reason, because you referred to a story about Kashmiri Pandits. So I was just bringing to the notice of the, unfortunately you were not here, about a Delhi public school which is in Srinagar, which schools 5,000 children, and what that family is going through. Mehtabji was very kind enough to even add a point that children with special needs are doing. I'm just bringing to the kind notice of this government of what a Kashmiri Pandit has contributed to Jammu Kashmir. 5,000 children, Indian children are taught there, and how much suffering in policy and trouble the education department, there's no specific, is giving to them, unfortunately. So
she's informing an important matter in the house.
I'm only trying to help somebody's child.
And also draw your attention.
I don't care about everybody's children. I'm very proud of my parents. I have no problem with my lineage. Anyway, so that's not what we are doing. We're not discussing where I was born.
Please sit down, please.
So I'm glad, proud. So am I. Very good. The other thing I was
Why you are disturbing? No, Supriyaji is making a good speech. Why you are disturbing?
Anyway,
Please.
Honours, what I wanted to talk was seriously more about the budget. I was not going to bring in, but since he had this, I really felt, because I have visited that school. Even during challenging times, I've seen how the Dhar families pained and what all they and their teachers have contributed for education. It's something that really deserves an award and recognition in this country. What I would like to talk about the budget, which nobody, unfortunately, even the Honorable Minister did not say. There are a few questions I would like or bring to the notice of the Honorable Finance Minister. Now, in the budget, there is a sector-wise revenue expenditure. In this, what is written, I'd like to bring on the page 13 of the note that she has circulated, is then the hospitality and protocol is minus 4.72%. In infrastructure sector, public works is at minus 8.76%. Public health engineering is minus 1.42%. And there is more. In social sector, which is also a little concerning, which is health and medical education, is minus 5.40%. So health and medical education. Then there is infrastructure sector, which even Mr. Reddy and Saugata Babu already have spoken, so I won't revisit it. But power development is minus 9.25%. In that, public works of infrastructure sector is minus 6.9%. Transport is minus 52%. And in totality, the finance sector, planning, development, monitoring is minus 41.7%. And finance is minus 18.62%. Total finance sector is minus 23%. And overall, it's 17.40%. That's all it has gone down. And the most worrisome number in this entire document is that the debit GDP ratio, this is the book of what the Finance Ministry has given us, that the percentage-wise, the debt at percentage of GDP is 53%. It has been the highest ever. This is what it says. So the gross state domestic product, the debt liability number has been the highest since 2010. So this budget is very, very worrisome because the numbers, there are so many sectors which you say you're doing so much improvement, then there is how come there's so much minus? Now in the power sector, the same numbers have come and the same projects have come, which all the earlier speakers have said. So, and the word is the likely investment in these projects is, what does likely investment mean? I mean, whatever little English that I understand, likely means it may happen. Doesn't assure. Last 6 years, we are hearing the same thing. So this likely investment is a very worrying statement. Mr. Reddy talked about shawls. He's such a gracious man. When he went, he gave all of us gifts to promote Jammu Kashmir. He got us all the MPs gifts from Srinagar just to support. I think that was such a large-hearted thing that he did for us. And Pashmina shawl, something we are all proud of and all of us like to have. To extend that, this government has started a program of integrated sheep development program. I didn't understand this program, if you could kindly say it. It says that they are importing, sir, please note, around 1,200 sheep-goat units to be established in creation of employment opportunities for 2,400 people, 200 elite, which is also very interesting, 200 elite cross-breed imported merino sheep to be introduced for genetic upgradation of local sheep for production. I mean, when all these years Jammu Kashmir has done so well, I see no reason for this. I mean, it makes no sense. I don't know who's really planned it. Imported sheep. And other times we are only talking about Be Indian, Atmanirbhar Bharat, local, vocal for local. I don't know what this intervention is from. Another question, this is my ignorance, so I would like to ask for a clarification. Is 7,750 crore have been provided for the Jal Jeevan mission for achieving the objective of 100% pipeline supply in each household. Now, most states, the state has to contribute the same amount. So is there some different package giving to, if it's given, I have no problem. It's a state which needs help, we're happy to help. But 7,750, because normally when it's given to other states, the states have to contribute also an equal amount to match it. Now, with looking at this ratio of the way infrastructure cuts have happened, how are we going to achieve this? Then there is a 200 crore provision for smart city. Then there is some mention of Amrit City. Sir, last time also I had spoken about this. Amrit and smart cities are not some great success stories, at least in the country, where at the state I come from, smart city is a failed project. The government has spent over 1,50,000 crores on Smart and Amrit together. And what have we achieved? No great. Has anybody looked at the impact assessment of this? Nobody has. So I really want to know, through this budget, what is this government going to achieve? You know, talking about periodic blockages of internet. Saugata Roy ji talked about the Kashmir Council. I think Nishikant Dubey ji had a big objection to it. I think the point you were trying to make was, if with your permission, I would like to just sort of correct it a little bit, correct it, or it may not be the right word, but the point he was trying to make is that the commerce, all the industrialists together who are there for the last several years in Jammu Kashmir are very upset that because of the internet connections being stopped erratically, what happens is the business gets affected. And so a lot of money over a period of time has been lost because of this. Electricity still is a problem. Just because our delegations go, and in Srinagar you see electricity, that doesn't mean that's the situation in the entire country, in the entire state. Another quick question is, are all government schemes totally implemented today on the field, is my question, if the Honorable Minister could add. Vaishno Devi, as I mentioned earlier, there was a huge stampede at Vaishno Devi. Now the Amarnath Yatra will soon start. So has there been great big ticket improvements in both these yatras or infrastructure wise? Since you are constantly talking about improvement, what really big improvements have said? I can't see them after my visit. So what really have they achieved? Which hotel have they improved? How many airports have they done? What railway interventions have they done? What grade? There is a lot of money been put in, but do we have better roads? Like when I went to Srinagar as a child, it was one of the most beautiful cities in the country, or probably even in the world. It had 4 chinar. This time when I went, it had only 1 chinar. And it was actually, I hate to use this word, probably a little unparliamentary, but it was actually filthy, the Dal Lake. It's not as beautiful, as clean as used to be. So what have you really achieved in the last few years? You've been in governance, and let's not only get tied up to 370. There is life before that and there's life after that. People still live there. Log wahan rehte the. One rule is not like a magic wand which changes your life completely. It has to be a combination of things that really have to make a difference in their lives.
Yes.
So what is it? So last one point I'll have to make is, they keep talking about jobs. I would like to ask, there were thousands of jobs that they promised. Nothing like that has really happened, because that's the field. The JK Bank is mentioned in the budget. I'm sticking to everything they mentioned in the budget. 200 crores and some 1,000 jobs created. Have they really created those many jobs? 1,000 jobs barely are created according to the budget document. So what is this intervention? Even the Honorable Minister talked about Jhelum and Dal Lake. I want to ask, there was a big project about Volar, Jhelum and Dal Lake, a big beautiful program. So in the last 6-7 years that you've been in power in the center, why nothing has happened regarding that? So these are many, many questions we want to ask, because we want to work with you. This is not only about criticizing you. We really feel Jammu and Kashmir deserves the visibility, the investment, and a better livelihood and a safe livelihood for every woman and child and citizen that lives there. इतने अगर उतना अच्छा होता ना, तब बेचारे वहाँ के शॉल वाले कश्मीर टू कन्याकुमारी भटकते नहीं रहते जैसे बेचारे आज भटक रहे थे, अगर इतनी अच्छी ये सब ठीक कर देते कश्मीर में. So I request them, and one last question, I can't resist this punch, that they said so much they wanted to speak about all these Kashmiri Pandits and their love for them. How much of this? I mean, I couldn't read. I'm not Einstein like my colleague Manish Tiwari said, nor am I such a smart, speedy Gonzalez who can read very fast. But in this entire big document, and there is more, there is no mention of any Kashmiri Pandit or specific intervention done for refugees who left Kashmir during the insurgency or during or who have come back. So if you feel so solidly for them, please include them in documents and make it a reality for their life. Let's not live only in a bubble. It's time they deliver. And you know, अभी 60 साल आपने क्या किया, अभी boring हो गया. कुछ नया dialogue निकालिए. 7 years is a long time to do something. You know, बच्चा कुपोषित है. 7 साल में उसको खाना खिला के माँ दौड़ा के स्कूल भी भेज देती है. 7 साल में इतना हो सकता है एक माँ को. So let's get out of this 60-year debate. Thank you.
Thank you.